This episode of Selling with Social is being brought to you by STAR, the Sales Team Alpine Retreat, a Frost Sullivan Executive MindXchange taking place this February 7th through 9th, 2018 in Lake Tahoe, Nevada. And now to Selling with Social.
He did not ring the bell. He just gently tapped. He listened and remembered, which I know we're all supposed to do from kindergarten. In business today, customers want to know if we care about the answers. And Max demonstrated he cared about the answers because think about it. This obscure sales rep, he spent 30 minutes with him and he remembered the one most important thing. Don't wake up this guy's baby. Talk about GPS, right?
Hey y'all, welcome to Selling with Social, the podcast that helps marketers increase marketing qualified leads, sales reps to shatter sales results, and sales leaders to grow as leaders. Each show, we interview sales, marketing, and social media practitioners, leaders, and influencers to help you connect, close more deals, build stronger relationships with clients, and improve your sales productivity. I'm Mario Martinez Jr. You're now listening to Selling with Social. Ed Wallace, I am so excited that you're joining me here on Selling with Social. Very excited to have the #1 best-selling author of several books, along with the president of the Relational Group, Mr. Ed Wallace. Thank you for joining me, my friend, on Selling with Social.
Mario, thank you so much for that great entrance. It's great to be with you here and with your audience today.
Well, we've got a lot of folks listening in. We've got sales, we've got marketing, we've got sales enablement, leaders, reps, business owners, and I know you've got some great talk tracks for them today. And I'm really excited to talk about these concepts related to relationship building, relationship selling, and how to leverage relationships is what we're going to be talking about today. But before we get started, my friend, do me a favor. Give a little background about yourself. Who is the great Ed Wallace?
Well, Ed Wallace is a CPA by education, Mario, and I'm in recovery. And that's probably the best joke you're going to get today.
Okay, all right. We're going deep on jokes here.
Part of my recovery process, about 25 years ago, I went into sales. And about 12 years ago, I saw a niche area out there where no one was really teaching about how to build business relationships. Not relationship selling per se, but actually a real process on how to build business relationships, how to think about them with intention. So started the Relational Capital Group, wrote a couple of books, got some play with some sales training companies, and my goodness, we've served over 300 companies in the last 12 years now on 4 different continents. Been to Ireland a couple of times this year, Mexico, we've been to Tel Aviv, we've been everywhere. And what's interesting is I got really lucky because I picked a platform that's kind of evergreen. No one ever says we can't get better at relationships, especially in the digital age, where proximity is even more difficult. Yeah. So, been doing this for a while and just having a great time and getting to meet someone like you. It's an honor to be with you today.
Well, thank you, my friend. I appreciate that. So I always like asking all my guests a very special question, and that is, tell us something nobody would know by looking at any of your digital or social profiles.
Okay, I have a bunch of great little anecdotes, but this one takes a little longer, but I'd like to share this one. I'm giving a speech in Vegas at the Bellagio, and I've been doing this for a long time. I've been in sales for a long time, so my wife is tired of coming with me on business trips. But the timing worked out great. She likes to gamble. She had never been to Las Vegas. Of all places, she had never been to Las Vegas. I said, honey, I'm getting a great honorarium for this speech. I have to literally work an hour. Join me on this trip. So we get to Vegas on a Sunday. They give us a beautiful room at the Bellagio. We hang out. We do some things. My speech is the next day, Monday at 3 o'clock. So I go down naturally and get prepped around 1 o'clock. It's the close of this conference for this association. And the guy who hired me, the executive director, came up to me and said, Ed, he goes, you're going to get disrupted around the end of your speech. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, you know how ballrooms, the walls move and they're connected. He goes, the Rolling Stones are going to be they're doing a rehearsal, a sound check on the other side of the wall that you're speaking against. So your back will be to Mick Jagger's back at 4 o'clock today. I said, get out of here. He said, no. He goes, tell your wife to come down. He goes, maybe they'll open the doors. Maybe we'll see them. You'll definitely hear them. So I text my wife, get out of the casino. Get down here. She goes, why? I go, the Rolling Stones are next door. She goes, get the F out of here, right? And I said, no, come down. So the speech ends at 4:00 and there's no noise. And I do the book signing because we always do a book signing after speeches. And then as I signed the last book, she got there and tumbling dice comes tumbling through the walls. And then she's my little rock and roll. And you can hear them talking with each other. And they open the one side door. I saw Keith Richards from behind. So my wife says, you know what you got to do on your website? I go, what? She goes, you have to put that you opened for the Rolling Stones. So there's my fun fact. I hope you didn't mind the time I took, Mario.
I like it. So do you actually have that on the website?
No. I tell the story a lot, though.
Well, it would be good if you actually showed, like a little video clip that is the wall is opening and you're opening literally for the Rolling Stones.
We have a video of me sitting there with my leg crossed and the music coming through the wall, and I stick my tongue out like the Rolling Stones' tongue. I don't think I want to put that on the website.
There you go. I love it. Well, that's a great story. Well, it's a pleasure to have you. And one of your recent books, the most recent book actually, is The Relationship Engine. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
When did you publish that?
That came out in October of last year, 16.
All right. And it's gained obviously some great attention in the marketplace. I know you and I had a chance to sit down and talk through this when we were together back in Vegas, was it?
In Vegas at dinner.
In Vegas, that's right. But we didn't have the Rolling Stones there. But
no, that was the previous year.
Exactly. So this was such an intriguing conversation to me as we started thinking about, this whole concept of relationship building, growing relationships, leveraging relationships the right way. And I thought, man, this is such a perfect conversation to, of course, the business professional, the salesperson, the sales leader. But, to your point, though, some of the challenges that we see to relationship building is that we become such a virtualized society, group, people. The way we engage with people is through virtual communications. And oftentimes we don't even see each other face to face. It's texting or social networks or whatever it might be. So do you think that relationship building is still the chief cornerstone to making deals and opportunities and sales? Do you think that's the chief cornerstone to making those things happen still?
Well, I do, but the data proves it out as well. There was a recent study, Mario, of senior executives across all functions in large companies. So these were senior executives of Fortune 500 companies. They asked those executives, and they weren't just sales, marketing, HR, CEO, R&D, finance, the IT, the hard skill areas. They said, what's the secret to your success and your team's success year in and year out? And almost 90% said relationships, which I found, okay, every corporate website has relationships on the front page. If not, they better talk to their marketing people, right?
Yeah.
It was interesting, though. As the study went further, they asked these same really smart people, what do you do about that? And only 24% said they actually think about their relationships with any kind of intention. And then when they asked those 5% of those 24% of those people what they meant by intention, they said, well, we have a CRM system. We use a CRM system to manage our business relationships. So they went right to digital. And I don't know about you, but there really isn't an R in CRM, Mario, right?
No, exactly.
There's belly buttons that put the R into CRM. So we have all these great technical tools today. And you guys are at Vengreso, you're masters at helping people understand how social selling works. At the end of the day, it's still a high contact sport.
Yeah.
And that high contact doesn't have to be in person. And I want to make sure as we go through our conversation today that I stress that, hey, proximate's great. People don't get as proximate as they once did. And I'm going to talk about some ways when we get further into this as to how you can be less proximate and still be successful with your relationships.
So this is interesting. The study showed that only 24% of these executives across all areas thought about relationships with intention, meaning that they're using this relationship for something else. Is that what you mean by that in terms of intention?
With intention means I have goals and I connect a belly button to that goal, not an account, not a company, not a division, but an actual human being. A human being that's got what we call relational GPS, goals, passions, and struggles. Have I connected with those goals, passions, and struggles? And again, that's another tool we'll talk about as we get further into this. So only 5% of the executives in this survey actually thought about their goals at the beginning of the year and actually connected a real human being to each of those goals. They don't connect people. They connect, obscure accounts or company names, etc.
What does that leave us? Tell me what that means. If they didn't do these things, so what does that mean for someone like me or someone like yourself?
Well, they're ad-libbing their way through.
Mm-hmm.
So, and again, I was a great ad-libber. I was a VP of sales for many years. I sold software, and then I had a sales team. And I was just natural at relationships. It was pretty easy for me until I had to write some books.
Yeah.
And I had to actually write stuff down. It's like, well, and I always wondered why my team couldn't just go and be great at relationships, because we all process differently.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we focus on is thinking about relationships strategically through a process. And in the relationship engine, we talk about a process called the relational ladder. And it takes us from acquaintances to peers to respected advisors. And there's really 5 rungs to that ladder. And as we get a little further into it, I'll get into the ladder a little bit more. But I mean, when we work with our customers, and we work mostly with large companies, they hire us because we talk process. We talk process within their workflow. We don't talk about this touchy-feely relationship stuff. We talk about, hey, Mario is in your top 5 relationships for this year based on your goals. What do you know about Mario's relational GPS? What do you know about his business and personal goals? What do you know about his passions or causes, things he cares deeply about? And what do you know about his struggles? And based on that, what are you going to do to launch, advance, or sustain that relationship? That's an action plan in a very shorthanded way. And that's one way to be intentional about relationships.
Very interesting. And just to review, you talked about understanding someone's business and personal goals, their passions, and then their struggles.
GPS.
The GPS, right? And then mapping a plan to any one of those 3 or all 3 of those elements.
That's an excellent summary. Yeah, you catch on really fast. That's good.
Yeah.
You do this for a living?
Well, they say I'm kind of good at this thing.
I think so.
So you obviously were a former VP of sales, as you mentioned, and you decided to go off on your own and write really 4 books all about business relationships. What was the compelling factor? I mean, I know that you said that you saw that everybody was doing something differently. Was there something more other than, I have a whole sales organization. They're doing things 10 different ways, and there's a better way to do it? Or what was the basis for this?
You had to pull me into this, didn't you, Mario?
Well, that's the goal.
It was actually a very personal situation that pulled me into it.
Okay.
I'll take you back to August 26, 2005. Had my nice VP of sales job, was supposed to be out of town. It was a Friday. And my out-of-town trip got canceled. I was supposed to play golf. That got canceled. So now I have a full day in the office. And our younger son, Grant, was 8 years old at the time. He's playing that morning at a friend's house. And doesn't he fall off a skateboard? And I pick up my phone around 12 o'clock. I'm headed to lunch. My wife, Laurie, calls, and she said, hey, get over to our friend's house. Grant fell. I'm further away. I'm on my way over there, but he's fine. Just, take your time getting over there just so you're there. I'm halfway to our friend's house, and she said, you need to go to the helipad at the community college. You're going to medevac Grant to the children's hospital. Now, I know you've got young kids. In fact, you've got a 7-year-old. Grant was 8 years old at the time. That'll put some starch in your shorts, won't it, Mario?
Yeah, just a little. Yeah. I mean, wow, that's pretty impactful right there.
Now, Grant's fine, by the way. I mentioned, we talked earlier, Grant's a college baseball player today. So I don't want everybody wondering, where's Grant today?
Oh, you ruined it. I mean, you had me there just for a second.
I don't want to have this. It's great in a keynote, by the way. It's a great keynote topic.
You start keeping people on the edge of their seat. What happened next?
Exactly. I don't do that too. So I get to the community college before my wife, and you could just imagine there's a helicopter there with the cross on it, the Red Cross thing on it. There's a fire truck there. I don't know why they always bring fire trucks to things like that, but there was a fire truck. And again, it's our small town that we talked about earlier. We know everybody. The poor mom, who's one of our dearest friends to this day, is a mess because she, Grant fell on her watch, right? So she's a wreck. And there I see this little kid with blocks on his head, just like the football players in front of the ambulance. And my wife's not there yet. She's an ER nurse. I'm thinking, okay, she's going to make everything better, right? But she's not there. And people are having me sign things, and it's like I'm running in slow motion. I eventually get to Grant, and the one thing I know about Grant is his feet are very ticklish. So he's in this kind of stupor from falling, and I tickle his feet and his legs move. So I'm like, okay, thank goodness he's not paralyzed. Laurie gets there that minute. They take them off in the helicopter. Our older son, Brett, and I, we head down to the children's hospital. It's like 45 minutes on Friday afternoon in traffic. Now, you asked me what triggered me to start this business. I'm about to tell you what triggered it. We get to the children's hospital. Laurie and Grant got there in 4 minutes. It's taking us 45 to an hour. We get there, and our children's hospital is a very famous children's hospital. It's got this gigantic parking garage. And at that time of the day, you got to go to the top to get a spot.
Yeah.
You enter an atrium with escalators. Then you get to the bottom and you divert out to where you need to go. At the bottom of the escalators, there's a lady standing there with a clipboard. And she's looking around and she looks up at me. She goes, "Are you the Wallaces?" I said, "Yes." She said, "I came to find you because Grant's not in the usual places. I want to assure you he's fine.
Oh.
He's stable, but I want to take you to where he is without having you have to go through all the procedures here." At that moment, it didn't hit me, but as Grant was recovering that week, it hit me like, wait a minute, they sent somebody to find us. And I didn't care if they were doing it for every family that was coming in there that day or not. They had what I called worthy intent. And as I start thinking about what that hospital did, I started realizing, well, that's the key to everything, having good intentions towards other people. So I developed this concept called the principle of worthy intent. And it's not about having good intentions, because I think in general humans do.
Yeah.
It's about what behavior you're seeing coming back at you, Mario. So for instance, let's go back to the children's hospital. We validated their good intentions in the future by switching both of our children to their health system, right? We introduced our friends to their health system. We contributed monies to their health system. So it's not about having good intentions, which the hospital had. It's about, are the people that they have good intentions towards getting it. So this new book, The Relationship Engine, believe it or not, is about thoughtfulness in sales. It's about thoughtfulness in business, because everybody has 100 emails waiting for them every morning. Everybody has meeting on top of meeting on top of meeting. Everybody has mortgages and kids and elderly parents like we do. Everyone's got all the same thing, except some people have the money and some people have the stuff. So how do we help the people with the money and the stuff connect as humans? And we call that relationship capital or relational capital. And that's the value that we have in our business relationships. And relational capital starts with worthy intent, and it's made up of 3 components: credibility, integrity, and authenticity. And when those 3 qualities come together, and we don't suggest to our customers, get credibility. We suggest, can you reappreciate credibility and how important it is to be believable to your customer? Do you display integrity by making sure you follow up on all your commitments? Are you authentic in the process? Like, I love how authentic you are. First time I met him, I'm like, that's an authentic guy. And when we were prepping for this call, I'm like, oh, this is going to be a lot of fun, because you are so authentic. And I think the sooner sales professionals can get to authenticity and being who they are, one of my favorite lines is, be yourself, everybody else is taken.
Yeah.
The sooner we can get to that, the better chance we have to evolve the relationship. But Grant's falling triggered me like, hey, I can be a VP of sales the rest of my life, or I can really make a difference. And I'm not saying VPs of sales don't make a difference, but from my perspective, this is how I wanted to make a difference.
Yeah.
So that's how it happened. Long story, but I hope you don't mind me sharing that.
No, that's a great story. So that was the trigger event that really started helping you to dive more deeply into this concept of relationship building and the different principles of relationships, like being worthy of intent, right? And you talked about 3 different items. You said credibility, integrity, and authenticity. And I want to drill down into this discussion point here, specifically when it comes to integrity. I feel like this is a no-brainer. I feel like that this is an area that, everybody believes they operate, in an integrous fashion, right? And like, is that really even something to call out? I mean, or how do you demonstrate integrity to a customer or to a buyer that they see it, they feel it, they know it, that they could believe you when you say this is the best that we can do, or that's not a good option for you and here's why? How do you prove that out?
Well, I like to cite studies. There was a recent study by the Great Places to Work Institute talking about integrity.
Okay.
And the study came back and indicated there are no trust-neutral interactions. There are no trust. So what that means to me in reading the study was, every time I communicate with someone, every time I interact with someone, they will trust me more, or they will trust me less. It's never neutral. So, how sometimes we just fire that email off because it's the end of the day, it's a good customer, they'll understand or whatever. Well, there's a chance they might trust me less after they read that email. So when we talk about making every interaction matter, and you talk about how do we ensure integrity, let your customer know. that you've delivered on your commitments. Even though you deliver on the same commitment for every single customer, whatever that is, maybe you're in the insurance business, you're underwriting things, whatever you are in sales, it may be routine for you. It's not routine for them. Let them know. If they introduce you around their organization, give them an update on how it goes. Give them the bad news as soon as you can. Oh my gosh, guess what? The shipment got lost. And then we also always say, people that are integrous, they share facts and not hype. So, throughout our discourse, I've tried to share facts that I didn't develop that came from other organizations about relationships. I can tell you, hey, relationships are the most important thing, hire us. We're going to help your folks build better relationships. But when you cite facts, especially in sales, because as you know, sales is a 5-letter word, Mario, right? And it's on our foreheads. As soon as we walk in that room, we have sales on our forehead. How can we overcome that stereotype and overcome that initial hurdle? And we can't, let's go back to the first quality of credibility. Like we're focusing on integrity. It can't happen until we're deemed believable. And that's the definition of credibility, the power to elicit belief.
Such a great point you bring up there, Ed, because you think about this. You mentioned something you said before, when you send off that email, how is that person going to view that? I mean, what is it that you're saying? I think you said, what was the phrase you said? Making every interaction matter is what you said. Yep. And everything that you do, whatever you say, whatever you write, is it going to make them trust you more? Or is it going to make them question you more? Right? And so it calls to mind, actually, this is an interesting one. So I'm going to share with you what happened. This is 2 weeks ago. Somebody requested to connect with me. And if you're in my marketplace and you are somebody that, could help me, that you've got something that could help me, those are some of the main reasons why I might connect with you and open my network up to you. And so this individual connected me, and within like 5 minutes, I got a response, which very much felt like an auto reply. And it was a standard canned message. And I'm all for templates, right? If you get a template-based message, it should very much feel like it's very personalized, right? And a great example of that is I write the way I speak. And some people are turned off with, hey, Ed, instead of hi, Ed, right? But you'll never hear me say, hi, Ed. Like, that's just not my personality. Like, I walk into an office, I wouldn't say, hi, Ed. I'd be like, hey, Ed, how's it going? Right? That's 100% bona fide Mario Martinez, right?
That's authenticity.
That's authenticity. So I write the way I speak. And even if I use a template for every new connection that I connect with, even if I use a template, you're going to feel an authentic self coming from that, right? So this individual within their company connected with me. It's a leader that's obviously trying to sell me something, a consulting firm. And he sent me within 5 minutes a canned message, a bunch of links inside there. I ignored it, right? Then literally that was November 14th or something like that. So, about a couple weeks later, I get a message, which was today. And instead of hitting me up on my actual LinkedIn, he took my email, he downloaded it from his LinkedIn, uploaded it to his email subscriber list.
Right.
And I got a drip message. And the drip message said, subject line, Mario M. comma. Now, this is how I know that somebody is utilizing 100% automation, because if they were smart, they would realize that there's only one way to put a middle initial into your LinkedIn profile. It's either going to be the first name space middle initial, or it's going to be in the last name field, it's going to be middle initial space your last name.
I didn't know that.
And that's the only way you can do that. So I have mine in my first name field for the very purpose of if you send me an email and it says Mario M. nice meeting you, right? I know that you are using the first name merge field function, right? And I get that, and immediately it's a turnoff.
Right.
Here's the thing about that. You said something that was so important, because he's trying to sell me, I don't even know what it is, something about leadership and wanting to meet to do a short, quote unquote, he puts in quotes, discovery call. Right. But making every interaction matter is such a critical element in this digital era that we live in right now, because many of our buyers are not picking up the phone. We don't get a chance to meet them face to face and shake their hand and actually, have a drink with them to be able to build a relationship in person like we would love to, right? Like it's much easier.
Yep.
They're behind a firewall. They're behind an email. They're behind a social network. They're behind something that is blocking you from getting to them in a much easier fashion. And so this message that was sent over to me not only said Mario M, comma, nice meeting you in the subject line, but then it said, hi, Mario M, period.
Delete.
And then the best part was, he says, it was nice to meet you and connect on LinkedIn. Now, technically we didn't meet, but I guess if you want to call, LinkedIn meeting, all right, well, I'll go with that. LinkedIn is obviously about networking and exploring opportunities that can benefit us both.
Right.
I want to make sure we follow up and get that accomplished since we just met. Just book a call on my calendar at, and he has his link, or hit reply and let me know when you have a few minutes on your calendar for a short, and he puts, quote, discovery call.
Yeah.
If we can't connect this week, I'll touch base with you again next week. Then it shows his enclosure, and then there's a PS, which was somewhat customized, but maybe not. Maybe it's everybody. How I built a following over 100,000 people on LinkedIn. Maybe he thinks that that's important to me, right? To build my following.
Right.
And then if you go to hit unsubscribe, the best part about it, and this is what marketers just don't get. The best part about it was the campaign name is called 14-Day Drip.
Oh my, you're kidding me. You're
right?
kidding me.
Everything about this messaging. But here's the thing though, Ed, time and time again, I have a folder called emails that suck, right? Emails, I swear to God, that's my folder I got on my computer. Emails that suck, and I save them because we're building a great presentation, which I'll be giving in February at the Digital Sales Summit in San Francisco on emailing. And here is a perfect scenario that I just described to you that making every interaction matter totally blew up in this guy's face. Would you agree?
Oh my gosh. The first time you told me about the subject line or the initial, and I get the same thing. Since you're bringing up, let's talk about how powerful LinkedIn is. I know you're an expert at LinkedIn. I am not. LinkedIn is a great tool for knowing about people and understanding who's out there. Relational GPS is really knowing someone. So what we suggest to our sales customers is, hey, LinkedIn's great. You have thousands of connections. What are your goals for the next quarter? What are the top 10 or 15 people you need to meet? You already have a relationship with, you need to advance, or you want to just sustain a relationship with. Just write them down. Now, we have assessments and all, they put them in there, but let's just say they're just writing them down, right? Okay, what do you know about Mario's GPS? And most of the time, they could know the customer for 5 years, they don't know their goals.
Yeah.
And we call relational GPS relational shorthand because almost anything you share with me is a goal, passion, or struggle.
Yeah.
And we don't give a lot of points for goals. So sometimes our clients don't even know their customers' goals. How are they going to know their struggles if they don't know their goals?
Right.
We give a lot of points when a sales rep knows why they're not accomplishing their goals, what they're struggling with. And then you can help them design a solution to accomplish their goal, to overcome their struggles. So, if people leave this video cast with one thing, remember, just categorize when you're talking with someone. You may be doing it over email. You may be doing it in person. You may be at a networking event. Learn GPS. You won't get it all at once. And then leverage that GPS ID into the right questions to ask them to build credibility for yourself so they can start trusting you. Because a business relationship doesn't start, in our opinion, until someone shares a goal, passion, or struggle. It can be, hey, we met on LinkedIn, we got a business relationship. No, we don't. Hey, we had lunch. No, when the other person shares one of those three things, that's when we declare a business relationship really begins, Mario.
Yeah, I love that. And more specifically is I have a teaching technique that I train on about when you connect with a new connection on LinkedIn, you do what's called humanize the connection experience, right? You need to know who I am before we even start thinking or talking about anything business related, right? And I actually have 2 stories that I send. And one of them is actually how my company, before acquired by Vengreso, M3 Junior Growth Strategies, how actually that was started as a result of a conversation with my 5-year-old. And 6 months later, I wrote a story called Dear Mom and Dad. And it was the story of me achieving certain level of success and watching my parents struggle, watching them go without food to make sure that we had enough to eat. And I share those 2 stories. And, about 95% of the time, people would write back like, wow, that was so impactful. And then the other 5% of the time, people would say, that was the lamest thing you've ever seen. Why would you send me a story about that? And I'm like, you're not my buyer, right? You're not the type of person that I would want to even buy from or sell to. And that I just know that about me. The next topic I want to go into is we talked about in the pregame, if you would, about a story about an incredible person related to business relationships, the greatest developer of business relationships. I want to hear that story. But first, we're going to take a short 1-minute program break from our program sponsor. I'm excited to mention Vengreso's partnership with Frost Sullivan on the launch of the Sales Team Alpine Retreat, STAR for short. Vengreso is proud to be a partner for the event.
And I'll also be presenting a session on digital selling strategies and tactics. If you're not already familiar with Frost & Sullivan's Star Executive MindXchange, you're missing an amazing opportunity to participate in what will be the most important sales leadership think tank ever. I encourage you to join us at Star February 7th through the 9th, 2018 in Lake Tahoe, Nevada. As an event partner, we're super excited to extend a $250 savings to all Vengreso event attendees. For more information, please visit frost.com/Vengreso. That's frost.com/Vengreso. Vengreso. So Ed, before the break with our program sponsor, I said to you, you told me about a story related to an incredible person that was one of the greatest developers of business relationships. Would you mind sharing with the audience what that story is?
Sure. I really appreciate you bringing that back up and reminding me that we had talked about that in the pregame, Mario. So Grant's falling off the skateboard triggered me to go back to this experience I had many years before, just as I start thinking about what should go in books. People love stories. You just talked about your 2 stories. They're wonderful stories. Most of the time, people enjoy hearing those stories. They're inspired by those stories. You know, you're an icon in this business, right? They want to know about you. They want to connect with you personally. So my story is, I mentioned I'm a recovering CPA, and part of the recovery process, I went into sales. My first sales job, the tech company I worked for gave me a sales territory in the Midwest, and I lived and still live in Philadelphia. So it's a little difficult to get from Philadelphia to Cleveland or Chicago without getting on an airplane, which means you have to get to an airport. Back in these days, I was taking a taxi at 5 a.m. I would take a taxi 5 a.m., get to the airport, and get to Chicago. You'd pick up an hour, and I would leave 5 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, come back on a Thursday afternoon. And I was doing that every week. The reason I would leave at 5 a.m., our other son, Brett, our older son, he and my wife, Laurie, had just started sleeping through the night. And everybody who has kids, as you know, knows you don't want to interrupt that process.
Right.
So, it's a typical Tuesday morning. I'm packing my bag. I'm trying to be quiet. Laurie's asleep. Brett's asleep. The cab driver appears at the door and he rings the doorbell. Oh. I sprint over to the door. I give him the high sign. He stops. He doesn't ring again. He just takes my bag, starts wheeling it towards a taxi. I stop, I look up at the ceiling as if I have x-ray vision, Mario. Laurie's asleep, Brett's asleep. We're off to a great start. Close the door gently behind me. Now, remember, I'm taking taxis every Tuesday morning.
Yeah.
And they're these old, this was the early 90s. They're old American taxis. They had things called Crown Victorias back then and Caprices. Yeah. I can't believe you remember that. But
I know the Crown Victoria.
You're a lot younger than I am. Anyway, this guy shows up, and I'll put up on the screen here for you, in a London taxi. In Philadelphia, the black London taxis. And he's holding the door open for me. So as most of the drivers would disturb the baby and then go sit in the cab and wait for me to put everything in myself. So this guy shows up in the London cab and he's holding the door open for me. And as I approached, the first thing I noticed was it was really clean, not like the taxis I was getting in. And as he closed the door behind me and was coming around, I noticed several things that were really distinctive about the cab, besides the fact that it was a London taxi in Philadelphia. The bench seats in a London cab, they have bench seats that face you. They're pushed back. Plenty of leg room. Beautiful leather seats, not cracked plastic vinyl seats full of duct tape. No sticky door pockets. You don't want to touch the door pockets in American taxis, right?
Right.
The cab was really quiet. No dispatcher, no sports talk, no traffic report, no music blaring. A little plastic bottle of water on the seat next to me. This guy thought of everything. I think he was the original Uber. As he comes around, he gets in. I noticed all that as he was getting in. He turns as he gets in the cab and he extends his hand across the bench seat and he says, "Good morning, Ed. My name is Max. How you doing today?" I'm reaching for Max's hand. I'm wondering, how did this guy get my name? And now we're headed to the airport. For the next 30 minutes, this guy learns an awful lot about me. He learns about my accounting recovery period and how I'm struggling at sales, thinking about going back to the dark side, back to accounting. He learns about our infant son, Brett, and how important it is for mommy and baby not to be disturbed when the driver comes to the door in the morning. And what he was really great at, and here's our hint for sales professionals, was asking the next question in a very credible, believable way.
Right.
So here's the way the first ride went. He's driving along. So, Ed, what do you do? I'm in sales, Max. Oh, and by the way, in the 4 or 5 years I rode with Max, we never had lunch together. We never had dinner. We didn't talk on the phone. It was his right eye the rearview mirror, his right hand in the back of his head. So I don't want to hear sales professionals tell me they can't build virtual relationships. Okay.
Yeah. Fair.
So Ed, what do you do? I'm in sales. What do you sell? Software. Where do you do that? In the Midwest. Typical questions that a driver might ask. And then normally the conversation doesn't go any deeper. Here's his next question. And I know the sales audience will appreciate this. Well, Ed, do you have a sales territory or do you sell on a named account basis? Are you more of an account manager? Yeah. Mario, what do you think I'm thinking when this cab driver asked me that question?
What is his history with sales? How does he know?
Where does he know, right? I have a territory, Max. Well, tell me about your quota. My quota?
Even still, yeah, he knows.
I've got one. He said, well, I figured you had a quota, Ed. How is your quota constructed? I go, well, what do you mean by constructed? He goes, well, what percentage of your business comes from new accounts, new friends? Yeah. What percentage comes from existing? I said, well, he goes, are you a hunter or a farmer? Now, this was in the 90s. Those words didn't exist yet. I said, well, I'm supposed to be a hunter, Max, but the cupboard's kind of bare, and I'm not really doing well with the customers. And then he stopped me and he said, Ed, I bet you those existing customers are more profitable for your business. Yeah, yes, generally. They are, Max. So think about it, everybody. Your existing relationships, are we getting the most out of them? The one stat I failed to share initially, and I held it back purposely, remember the survey?
Yeah.
The best business relationships are only working at 45% of their potential. Think about that. The best ones we have over half of the potential still untapped in there. How about that? So he said, I bet you those existing customers are more profitable for your business. Yes, they are, Max. And on and on and on. I'm sharing more and more with this cab driver who seems an awful lot about life, business, and sales. We get to the Philly airport in a flash, Mario. I give him a great tip. I'm doing a little touchdown dance on the curb because think about it. He's in sales. I'm in sales. He's in a commoditized, regulated business. I'm in a sophisticated technology business, complex sale, all that stuff, big commissions. I can learn a few things from this guy.
Yeah.
Max, that was awesome. I'll see you next Tuesday at 5 a.m. And he had a grin on his face when we started that conversation, and it turned upside down. He said, I'm really sorry, and I can't take you next week. I'm like, what do you mean? I just gave you a great tip, dude. He said, I have a lot of fares, I have a lot of friends, and they normally need to book about 3 weeks out with me. 5 a.m. in Philly when everybody's at the Jersey Shore in the summer on vacation. Right. I'm thinking that. I'm not saying, I go, Max, you can't pick me up. He goes, I have a lot of friends that, hold on, Max, when are you available? Who's the customer here? I asked him when he was available.
Yeah.
Pulls out a calendar, starts going through the pages, puts his finger on a day. It's the Thursday before Labor Day. Now, you may not recall, my schedule was Tuesday, Thursday.
Yeah.
He's asking me to take his taxi on the Thursday of Labor Day week, come back on the Friday, and I happen to have to go to Chicago that week.
Yeah.
When he offered that, I said, I'll take it because I wanted to get in the rotation. Something was going on here.
Yeah.
Fast forward 3 weeks. The baby's asleep. Mommy's asleep. Max appears at the screen door. What do you think he didn't do this time, Mario?
He did not ring the bell.
He did not ring the bell. He just gently tapped. He listened and remembered, which I know we're all supposed to do from kindergarten. In business today, customers want to know if we care about the answers. And Max demonstrated he cared about the answers because think about it. This obscure sales rep, he spent 30 minutes with him and he remembered the one most important thing. Don't wake up this guy's baby. Talk about GPS, right?
Yep.
So now I'm doing the interview this time in the cab. Max, who fills up your cab every week? I had to wait 3 weeks for a 5 a.m. ride, and he was a pretty humble guy. He said, okay, a lot of the local executives ride around with me, and when their colleagues come into town, I get to pick them up too. Who else, Max? Well, salespeople like yourself going back and forth to the airport. When families go on vacation, the kids love to ride in the cab. And I've become so busy at it. And I remember, I'm a sales rep that's not busy, and this guy's telling me how busy he is, right?
Yeah.
He said, I started a tour business for elderly people from the nursing homes, and I'll take a couple of lady friends. We'll go to the art museum, the Rocky Steps here in Philly. Yeah. And on Sundays, I'll take some gentlemen friends to the historic district. I interrupted him. I said, Max, what's the secret to success? You don't have to worry about your pipeline. You don't have to worry about your I'm translating his business into my business.
Right.
You seem to really like what you're doing. You're not moving at a crazy pace. I want some of that stuff. And we've all had great mentors. And Max became this great mentor. He's been featured in 3 of the 4 books. Publishers love this guy, right? When I give speeches, they go, are you going to tell the cab driver story? I'm like, I'll tell the cab driver story, right? So I said, Max, what's the secret? And great mentors never give you the answer. They prompt you to self-discover. So I wanted the answer, and he held his fingers like this far apart, about 1 inch apart. And he said, it's the little things that turn fares into friends. The little things. Think about the little things that you do in your own business, Mario. Think about the little things that have made a difference for you in connecting with people, in getting people on your program, and why your business is growing. There's a lot of little things we do that really count for other people. So I wanted to know what the little things were, even though I agreed with little things. I played high school sports, and I knew you had to practice and you had to block and tackle, all that stuff. And I listed the little things. I said, is it the beautiful taxi cab? Is it the pleasant conversation? Is it the knowledge of sales? Is it the gentle tapping on the screen door? Listening, remembering, and caring about the answers. And I listed 5 or 6 more, and he said yes. He said yes to the list. I wanted one answer.
It's all of them.
It's all of them, exactly.
All the little things.
Because we don't know what's going to connect with that other person. A little thing to you could be, I was on time for this recording. So that showed like, hey, Ed's really into what we're doing here. That may not be a little thing for somebody else. I know my wife will go to the certain restaurant she likes because they'll have her drink ready for her. Her drink is iced tea, right? Yeah. But we'll go there for lunch, and as we're walking in, the next thing you know, the iced tea is brought to her. We'll keep going to that restaurant. So we never know what those little things are, and that's so, I'll park Max for everybody right now, but what I like people to think about is, what is their taxi cab ride like, right? Right now, I'm in your cab, right? You create a great environment for this kind of interaction. You're an incredible interviewer. You're warm. You've got energy. You make me feel really important. You have a great cab ride. For our audience, what is their taxi cab ride like? And that gets us back to every interaction. This guy, Max, did not skip one area. From the beautiful cab. So think about it. Like, what are your emails? I'm not asking you personally, but like for our audience, what are your email responses like? Are you personalizing everything? What kind of experience? I like to say Max created a competitor-proof experience in a commoditized, regulated business because it was a $45 ride to the airport. It was nothing more than that, yet we had to wait on his schedule. And I always like to say, who's the customer here? So how are we creating that kind of experience? If you think about the most successful sales professionals, sales leaders, people are attracted to them. They're not always reaching out. People are attracted. And we talked about the process initially, the relational ladder. We start off all business relationships as acquaintances. We've got to get on the ladder. It's on us to build credibility. But once we're deemed believable, now we start doing stuff together. Now you can display integrity. And that's where you become a professional peer. And that's a great spot to be on the relational ladder. If you can get most of your relationships in the peer dimension where it's 2 business people working together, and then ultimately your best relationships will evolve to what we call respected advisor. Now, in Max's case, he was my respected advisor. I'm sure I was not his respected advisor. I was a peer. So again, respected advisor relationships are rare. If you can be a peer with your customer, I think that's the moral of the story on the relational ladder.
I love that. And the saying that I'm going to turn into a tweet here, it's the little things that turn fairs into friends.
Yes, sir. You got it.
And that's ultra powerful. Like that is like the most powerful thing in terms of relationship. And I'm going to tell this last story because we're going to move off the podcast here. But it reminds me of people ask me, I developed a very close friendship with one of the most well-known and respected global CIOs of a Fortune 10 company by the name of McKesson. The CIO, which was a direct report to the CEO, became such a good friend that he came to my wedding. And he actually came at 10 a.m. instead of 1 p.m. And he called me and he said, did you call it off? And I said, did I call what off? And he's like, I'm here at the wedding and there's no wedding. And I'm like, what? It's at 1, not at 10. He was like, crap, my admin made a mistake, right? But I remember when you told that story, it brought back to mind, it was just like the hallelujah moment. It brought back to mind that one of my very first meetings with him, I called his executive assistant up and said, I'm here at Starbucks. Her name is Zalise, who's now become a very good friend of mine as well. Mm-hmm. I called her up and said, Zalise, I'm here at Starbucks. Would Randy like anything to eat before I come up to our meeting? And she said, well, I don't know. Let me ask. And so she asked him and I heard in the background, he was like, wow. Well, no, tell him I'm fine, but thank you for asking. But it's just what you said, the little things that turn fairs into friends. And those are some of the things that people do. But that was a fantastic conversation. And I so appreciate that. And I think a lot of our listeners will just recognize the importance of being intentional with their relationships, sharing facts, not hype, as well as is learning how to take some of our best business relationships that have basically more than 50% of untapped potential and how to turn around and leverage those. A couple last questions for you. Number one, if someone wants to get a hold of you, can they connect with you on LinkedIn? Do you have a Twitter handle? How do they get a hold of you?
Ed Wallace at railcapgroup.com, LinkedIn, Ed Wallace, website, relationalcapitalgroup.com. You'll find me.
Fantastic. And I always like asking this last question to all my guests. Your favorite movie of all time. What is it?
Tommy Boy.
Tommy Boy. All right. Fantastic. Well, there you have it. Ed, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Selling with Social. I very much appreciate it, for joining me today.
My pleasure, Mario. Thanks for having me. Good selling, everybody.
Take care.
Thanks so much for joining me on that episode of Selling with Social. I hope you found as much value in that episode as I did. Here's what I want you to do next. Please go to www.vengreso.com. That's VENGRESO.com. VENGRESO.com. And make sure that you get access to our content. We've got the latest and greatest in digital sales, sales training, content marketing, and social selling strategies that are going to help you grow your sales pipeline. I look forward to having you on the next show of Selling with Social. Make sure you also go to vengreso.com/podcast to be able to get access to the latest and greatest Selling with Social episodes, along with any of the other episodes that we've got from Social Business Engines with my friend and partner, Bernie Borges, along with Conversations with Phil with my friend and partner, Phil Gerbishak. Thanks again for joining on Selling with Social.